The good news is that voters are increasingly aware of what's going on here. A new ABC News Ipsos poll found that 49% of registered voters believe Donald Trump is a fascist. That's the good news. The bad news is the poll also found among registered voters who think Trump is a fascist, 8% support him anyway. Something we need to seriously reckon with heading into this election. Millions of Americans who see Trump as fascist are voting for him. He also might win. It's still a toss-up. The last thing you want to happen, I think all of us agree, is that the outcome to become a kind of mandate for fascism in the United States, right? If he does win, we all have to be clear, the fight for the future of the republic will not end then and there, even if it gets much, much harder. Michael Beschlaw is an NBC News presidential historian and author of 9 books on presidential history. Ruth Ben-Ghiat is a professor of history at New York University, author of Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present. They both join me now. I want to play for you something that happened, Ruth, because I thought it was sort of a perfect moment of this weird. I mean, one of the things about this mode of politics is that it's both sort of troubling and awful and also like ludicrous in equal measure, right? Mm-hmm. The sort of like dear leader stuff. Here's Trump calling into a News Nation town hall to kind of to like get a pledge of allegiance and loyalty from J.D. Vance. Take a listen. Mm.
We have a call right now from former President Donald John Trump.
I do have a question, and I think it'll be quite an interesting one. The answer should be easy. How brilliant is Donald J. Trump?
But here's first of all, sir, of course, you're very brilliant, and we both agree.
So at one level, it's like it's a joke, it's a bit, but it's also like that's a putting him in his place and making sure, and that is a form of politics I just haven't seen in my lifetime in America.
No, because these are authoritarian dynamics where political elites must be constantly demonstrating their loyalty, and the leader stages occasions for them to do that. And the other side of this is that there are many occasions of ritual humiliation where elites who maybe have strayed a bit or they haven't proclaimed their dear leader sentiments for too long are ritually humiliated in front of the cameras, always on television. And so the leader keeps order among political elites. It's also called divide and rule, where you pit them against each other so they can compete for your loyalty. And that's a typical thing in all the regimes I've studied. And Donald Trump's been using his campaign to actually kind of manage the elites in this way. Even his vice presidential pick is not exempt from this.
I mean, the ritual humiliation thing's interesting because I've been so struck by it and thought that there just was like dozens of Republican office holders who just had a humiliation kink. They've been hiding the whole time and now are just really psyched to be able to sort of do it. It really does look like it. It's also just, it's just a different mode of, again, even at the rhetorical level, like the enemy of the people and the blood, you know, the poisoning the blood, these sort of constructions that just feel like they come from a fundamentally different place than like small d democratic politics.
But they do. The language comes out of Hitler, it comes out of Mussolini, comes out of fascism. 500,000 Americans, young people in World War II, most of them young people, lost their lives fighting fascism. That's something that everyone has known in this country for decades. You could not have elected a fascist in 1952. Too many people knew the cost of fascism. But here we have, just as you're both saying, we have never in all of American history had any major party nominee promising to be a dictator for a day or suspend the Constitution or pit the Defense Department against political enemies.
And the thing that I think has made this difficult, and I think there's a million reasons why this race is essentially statistically tied.
Of course.
I will pick them over probably till I end up in the grave.
Right, all of us.
But one of them has to do with this weird, is he joking, is he not dynamic. I mean, I've talked to voters. It's like, even when you see that, like there is this kind of like, is it a bit, is it not, is it a bit, is it not? And to me, the thing I keep coming back to is, if January 6th had never happened, I think there could be still a good faith case to be made that it's a bit. You know, I don't think it was a bit. No, I didn't think it was a bit beforehand.
But
the thing that's crazy to me is to argue it's a bit after they really did try it.
But that's the cognitive dissonance, because the thing with these leaders is that They are the defenders, but they also have their victim personalities. And the victim personalities allow the followers to feel protective of them. And it allows them to also think, oh, well, he's you know, he can't possibly, he's so humane, he cares about us, he can't possibly be serious when he's saying he's going to, you know, turn the military on us or talking about blood, because they really can't hold both thoughts together. And the other thing is that, you know, Mussolini was considered a buffoon and people didn't take him seriously. And Trump is a performer and he jokes a lot. And so that goes into it. And so people don't know if he's joking or not. But this is all an act, and other authoritarians have done the same thing, and they've all been decidedly not joking. And once they've gotten into power, people have had tragedies, and they're not joking at all.
Sort of kidding on the square. Your point about historical memory strikes me as really important. We have seen this in Europe, right? I mean, we've seen, right, like what happened after World War II is that basically almost all the right-wing parties were essentially profoundly discredited. The entire right of politics was lopped off because of fascist collaboration. You had these sort of Christian democratic sort of center-right parties coming before. And what we've seen over time is the extreme right making a comeback as basically a generation that lived through the ravages of fascism and the Holocaust died off.
Right.
And it does feel like there's a little historical memory thing happening in the U.S.
There is. And also in the United States, it only came at all close once in the 1930s, when the Depression was going on too long. People were getting tired of Roosevelt. Huey Long, the senator and governor of Louisiana, was saying, I want to make every man a king. I'm going to write checks to Americans if I'm elected president saying this money is being sent to you by Huey Long. Sound anything recent that we've seen? And Father Coughlin, the radio priest with 9 million listeners per Sunday. Roosevelt felt that he was fighting fascism at home because all these people were saying was the way to get out of the Depression, go to fascism. You know, just mandate money going to people. You want to fight Hitler, you want to fight Mussolini, you have to have a fascist government to do it. And that came very close. Roosevelt said one thing. He said in private, if a fascist in the United States ever, for instance, took up anti-Semitism, Roosevelt said, there will be more blood running through the streets of New York than there is in Berlin. This is the late 1930s.